Welcome back to Who Came Up With That? It's the podcast where we uncover the bizarre, brilliant, and often overlooked backstories behind the stuff you use every single day. I'm your host, Bane Biscuit, and today we're looking at something you might be wearing on your face right now. Glasses. Simple, right? Two pieces of glass or plastic in a frame. Maybe stylish, maybe functional. But what if I told you that this humble accessory has a backstory involving Roman emperors, Arabian scholars, Venetian guilds, and even a touch of medieval mystery? Eyeglasses are older and more global than you might expect. Glasses. Who came up with that? Let's rewind to before eyeglasses even existed. Way before. Ancient humans, they noticed early on that certain objects bent light. Polished crystals, water in bowls, even pieces of glass. They all had magnifying effects. One of the first recorded uses of this comes from Pliny the Elder, from his writings in the 1st century. He claimed that Emperor Nero, he used polished emerald to watch gladiator games. Now, whether this was to protect his eyes from the sun or actually magnifying the image is unclear, but it's a fascinating hint at early curiosity about optics. Fast forward a few centuries to Ptolemy, who described how lenses could bend and focus light. His work was translated, admittedly clumsily, into Arabic, but the basics are there. Lenses, light, refraction, stuff that matters. Well, that made its way into the hands of Ibn Sahl in the 10th century, and more notably, the philosopher Alhazen. Well, he was an 11th century thinker in Egypt who quite literally wrote the book on optics. He theorized how light enters the eye, how vision is processed, and his work became the foundation for centuries of optical science. These texts, they were translated into Latin in the 12th century, just in time to influence a new generation of European thinkers. But people, they didn't have glasses yet. But what they did have were reading stones. Well, these were chunks of polished quartz or glass, hemispherical, sometimes set in wood frames, used by monks and scribes to magnify the words on a page. They'd hold them over illuminated manuscripts in cold, dimly lit scriptoria. Imagine copying Latin by candlelight, and you start to see how badly they needed something better. Meanwhile, in China, during the Northern Song dynasty, from 960 to 1127, evidence points to the use of magnifying lenses. Though it's not clear whether they were used like European reading stones, the idea of manipulating vision through lenses had clearly arrived in Asia at this point too. As literacy spread across medieval Europe, especially among monks, so did the need to see tiny letters in dimly lit rooms. We see the idea taken off in the 12th century just as scholars like Robert Grosseteste and Roger Bacon were experimenting with optics. Grosseteste wrote about using lenses to read the smallest letters at incredible distances. And Bacon, by the year of 1268, he wrote specifically about magnifying lenses helping the elderly read. Now fast forward to around 1285 in Pisa or Venice, depending on who you ask. This is where eyeglasses, as we'd recognize them today, start to take form. No one knows the exact inventor, perhaps a monk, perhaps a craftsman, but they were a game changer. 2 convex glass lenses in a frame you could perch on your nose, not comfortably, but they worked. The earliest eyeglasses were hand-ground and expensive, but word spread quickly. By 1306, a Dominican friar named Giordano di Pisa, he told his congregation, "It is not yet 20 years since there was found the art of making eyeglasses, and it is so useful a thing that it is one of the best and most necessary arts in the world." Eyeglasses were now a thing. Well, the art spread quickly. Another friar, Alessandro della Spina, he started reproducing and sharing the invention. Meanwhile, Venice, with its world-famous Murano glass, it became the first major manufacturing hub for spectacles. Well, by 1320, spectacle makers in Venice, they had their own guild. And by the late 14th century, eyeglasses were common enough that Francesco Petrarca, he mentions them offhand in letters. One of the earliest visual depictions of eyeglasses is found in Tommaso da Medina's 1352 portrait of Hugh of St. Cher, who was a cardinal, sitting in a scriptorium with his specs perched on his nose. By the 1400s, Florence became an early center for spectacle making, and just in time, because Gutenberg was about to press the start button on the printing revolution. Once books started getting mass-produced in the mid-1400s, literacy exploded. But so did eye strain. Suddenly, everyday people, not just monks, they were reading. And they needed help seeing. Eyeglasses democratized knowledge. They let people read longer, work more precisely, and age with dignity. Glasses, they weren't just medical tools, they were intellectual equalizers. Those early glasses only helped with presbyopia, which is the farsightedness that comes with age. But in the mid-15th century, concave lenses for myopia, which is nearsightedness, they appeared. It wasn't until 1604, though, that Johannes Kepler finally explained why convex and concave lens worked, ushering in an era of scientific understanding that backed up centuries of trial and error. Early frames were clunky. Rivet spectacles were two lenses hinged together and balanced on the nose. The first shop specializing in eyeglasses opened in Strasbourg in 1466. Then came pince-nez, which clamped on your nose. Then scissors glasses, and lorgnettes, which dangled on chains. These modern temple arms, the kind that hook behind your ears, they show up sometime before 1727, likely thanks to a British optician named Edward Scarlett. Meanwhile, in Spain, Francisco de Quevedo, he was famously portrayed wearing distinctive glasses in the 1600s. Eyeglasses had become part of identity. There are some misfires in the history books too, though. A 17th century claim that a Florentine guy named Salvino degli Armati, he invented glasses. Well, that's totally false. And no, Marco Polo did not bring glasses back from China. In fact, Chinese records don't even mention glasses until the 1400s, and they were imported. One theory floated in 1907 by a professor named Berthold Laufer. He suggested India might have been their origin, based on how lenses spread, but later historians like Joseph Needham pretty much debunked that. Most evidence points straight back to Italy. Even in the 1500s, there were reports of people in India wearing glasses, but again, that's well after Italy had already established eyeglasses as a thing. Heck, there were even documented shipments of 24,000 pairs of glasses from Italy to the Middle East back then. Let's jump ahead a few centuries, though, and you've got Benjamin Franklin. We all know him. Dealing with both nearsightedness and farsightedness. He goes, you know what would be great? Bifocals. And he just invents them. He hated switching between distance and reading glasses, so he cut two pairs of lenses in half and glued them together. There's even a letter where he brags to a friend that now he only needs one pair of glasses. By the 1800s, eyeglasses became more affordable. Mass production took off, thanks to industrialization. Lenses got better, frames got lighter, styles diversified. Glasses, they were now tools, accessories, and sometimes fashion statements. Through the 20th century, companies like Zeiss, they take lenses to the next level. By the early 1900s, we get pinpoint focus lenses. And in the 20th century, boom, technology exploded. Plastic frames in the 1920s, lightweight metals in the 30s, anti-reflective coating in the 50s. And by the 60s, optometry was a booming field. Disposable contact lenses, 1971. LASIK surgery, 1989. And going back to the 30s, glasses, they were labeled as a medical appliance, often hidden away in shame. But by the 70s, designers and manufacturers started embracing the look. Now you got entire fashion lines, Ray-Ban, Gucci, Warby Parker, who are offering stylish eyewear, sometimes with no prescription at all. Glasses are no longer just vision tools, they're statements. Then came the 2000s, and eyewear companies went online. Warby Parker and Zenni revolutionized home delivery. Blue light glasses emerged to save our screen-scorched eyeballs. Augmented reality smart glasses began appearing in labs, and now on faces. And here we are. Even with contacts and laser eye surgery out there, glasses haven't gone anywhere. In fact, more than 1 billion people around the world still don't have access to proper vision correction. So you could say we've come a long way, but we've got a lot more work to do. Eyeglasses, they're a 700-plus year journey of ingenuity, vision, literally, and progress. From reading stones in monasteries to bifocals in Ben Franklin's pockets, from mass-market plastic frames to smart glasses with cameras and AI overlays, they changed how we read, how we work, how we learn, and in many cases, how we look. So the next time you clean your lenses or misplace your pair, or wonder if you should finally get those blue light ones, just remember, you're part of a long, evolving story that started with someone squinting at a book and thinking, there has to be a better way. Well, that's it for today's episode of Who Came Up With That? If you like this dive into eyeglasses, check out our previous episodes on beer, the potato chip, and even duct tape. Make sure you give us a follow, subscribe, share us with your friends, give us a review. And until next time, keep your eyes open and your lenses clean.